France's government is in political limbo after a stunning defeat of a right-wing coalition in the second round of voting in legislative elections. People rallied yesterday to celebrate the left-wing alliance winning most of the parliamentary seats. President Emmanuel Macron's centrist coalition came in second. However, neither party received a majority, leaving France to face a political deadlock. It was widely thought Marine Le Pen's alliance would win based on the first round of elections that took place last month. CBS News correspondent Elaine Cobbe is following the latest for us from Paris. So, Elaine, what happens next since none of the parties won the necessary amount of seats to control the National Assembly?
Lindsay, without an absolute majority, all of the parties are now scrambling to form alliances and to set themselves in the pecking order of who they believe should have the chance to name the Prime Minister. President Macron is going to have a tough time forming a government. He's already said he won't work with the far left, and they came in the top of that left-wing combined grouping in the elections, so they feel they have a right to make some more demands. Obviously, he does not want to work with the far right, so it is very much a case of this week everyone is trying to work out what is going to happen, who is going to be with who, and what alliances can be made. For the moment, however, he has decided to ask his Prime Minister, his outgoing Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, to just stay in place and to take the caretaker administration for, as he said, the stability of the country.
Why didn't the far right have as good a night as it did with the first round?
It said the French vote with their hearts in the first round and their head in the second. And when we talked to voters after the first round, they were saying, look, we wanted Macron out. We were tired of his government. We don't think he's listening to us. We're unhappy about the pension protests, cost of living. And some were saying, we want the far right, we want a change. But once the far right did so well, many of those who were centre-left and unhappy thought, wait a minute, we're not sure we want that kind of change. And so part of what toppled the far right this time was high turnout, the highest in 25 years, and that meant far more left and centrist voters came out, but also more than 200 candidates who were in three-way runoffs pulled out so that the candidates from left or centre parties would have a better chance of blocking the far-right candidates, and clearly that tactic worked.
The NATO summit in Washington is taking place this week. What implications could this have for many of the major world events we're all watching, including the war in Ukraine, including what's going on between Israel and Hamas?
I think many other world leaders will be heaving a sigh of relief that the far right did not win enough to get an absolute majority and be able to form a government, because they wanted to loosen the EU's control in France, but also talked about pulling France out of NATO. If we have a centrist, a leftist coalition, that is not going to happen. So it will be much more business as usual, and very much France still going along with the kind of politics it is currently using in international affairs.
The Olympic Games in Paris begin at the end of this month. Any concerns there about how politics could impact that, or how that could impact politics?
I think it's probably the reason why President Macron said, look, we're just going to keep the current government in place as a caretaker government. We have heard what the voters want, but right now it's too complicated. We have a lot on our hands, so let's just wait until they're over. He hasn't actually said it's about the Olympics, but that's what everybody here is thinking. And there's so much going on here, not just in Paris, but around the country. And there's the security issue. The security forces are stretched thin already. If they have to deal with protests by far right or far left, politicians and political supporters who are unhappy at being left out, then it would make life much more complicated. And because they're setting up for the Olympics with all of the seats and the buildings, there's an awful lot of scaffolding material around. If it got really ugly, there's far too much to try to take care of. So I think it was very much an idea of let's let this pass.
All right, Elaine Cobbe, thank you.